Oh, hey. Didn't see you there. Hello, everybody. Xeno here. Just catching me training for the Sonic Fighting tournaments to see if I can be the one to ride the Lunar Fox. Really weird to think you have to earn the right to save the world, but sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. Now, I'm done here training on my physical reflexes. I think it's time for me to start training on my mental reflexes. So let's go.
Sonic the Fighters. Sonic the Fighters was an arena fighting arcade game developed by Sega Division AM2 and released in mostly only Japan in 1996 as Sonic Championship. It was released worldwide but saw a very limited distribution. It was planned to be ported to the Sega Saturn at the time, but it seems like they couldn't adapt the game to the hardware as well.
Seeing how it was technically very graphically advanced for the time, probably not seeing a watered-down Saturn version was probably a good thing.
Well, 9 years after it came out, it was successfully ported to the GameCube and PS2 as a part of Sonic Gems collection.
One of my personal favorite collections because of the main menu music and simply from the fact that the cover is orange and blue.
It was then ported again in late 2012 to the Xbox 360 and PS3 with online matchmaking, with a few extra bonus features. We will be looking at the GameCube and 360 ports in this review. Being an arcade game first, this game's story is very simply explained during its advertisement cutscenes. Eggman, or
Dr. Robotonic. Personally, my favorite brand is Mobile.
Has somehow made another Death Egg under all of our heroes' noses, named the Death Egg Mark II, and is spreading chaos and mayhem across the planet. So, to get to the Death Egg to stop Eggman, Tails conveniently has this rocket to fly it there. But there's a catch.
It only seats one.
And it needs to have all 8 Chaos Emeralds to power it. So, while Eggman is wreaking havoc on the world, everyone who owns one of these 8 emeralds decides to join a fighting tournament to see who is worthy to take the rocket up to save the world.
Don't worry. Don't worry. Don't worry. They don't know that there are actually 10 Chaos Emeralds and I own the other 2.
Story-wise, other than Sonic, the character you choose to beat the game really doesn't matter. It only matters after the game to see which character you got the high score with at the high score screen.
So yeah, that's a pretty ridiculous premise to have a reason to have a fighting tournament happen, but it is a pretty good way to have the characters find a reason to actually fight each other, and I mean, it was the 90s, everything was kind of ridiculous. Like me, in this, in fighting, in a Goku suit, when you're weaker than Yamcha, with your freaking Yamcha.
If you've ever played Virtual Fighter or Fighting Vipers, you know almost exactly how Sonic the Fighters plays. It is a 2.5D style fighting game where the fights happen in a 3D arena, kind of like a WWE ring, but you move in sections of the X and Y axis. Obviously, the goal is to KO your opponent, and instead of sweat or blood flying off the characters when they get attacked in other fighting games, rings get knocked out instead, just like the classic games, which is a pretty neat touch. It just gets a little annoying when you hear it 300 times in one play session. You can attack with the usual punches, kicks, jump attacks, and throwing, but depending on who you select, you can also do various things like climb up the edge of the arena and attack, glide, fly tackle enemies, or even use weapons like Fang and Amy do. You can also block moves with a barrier that blocks all attacks except throws, which if you grab someone, it breaks that barrier. Certain stronger attacks also break barriers, but the barrier at least negates the damage from that move. Depending on the settings, there are a limited number of barriers you can utilize each round, or each match. So if you play with the vanilla rule set, expect to only block 5 strong moves every match.
These barriers let you do one more thing, and that's go into hyper mode. And no, not like the hyper mode in Sonic 3 Knuckles. I know you were thinking it.
Activating hyper mode will cost you 1 barrier that lasts about 7 seconds and will let you attack at blazing speed. The damage is noticeably lower, but it is a neat way to combo moves into each other and stun lock your opponent for a little bit. Going back to throwing, the neat thing about this game is that certain characters have more than one grab to use if you punch a certain combo, or just use their natural grab, and some have reactionary throws, like how Amy can have her hammer used against her, or how Fang can have his pop gun shot back at him, or even Bean have his bomb shoved back in his mouth and explode. Oh, speaking of characters, let's see who you can play as. Sonic the Hedgehog attacks with sonic speed punches, kicks, and spin dashes. Miles Tails Prower likes to grab people and pair-drop fighters down and hit them with his tails. Knuckles the Echidna, good old-fashioned boxer with fast jabs and kicks. He can also attack by gliding. Fang the Sniper likes to stay distance with powerful lunge attacks using his springy tail. He also loves to use his quirk gun to pester people at a distance. Bean the Dynamite, a duck based on the Dynamite Ducks game from the late 80s, and is a good personification of that game, using tons and tons of bombs to blow up his opponents. He's super fun to use in hyper mode to just unload bombs like crazy. Bark the Polar Bear, a big polar bear using slow, hard punches and throws to destroy his opponents. He can't crouch like other fighters, but he has a cool bowling move. Amy Rose. That Rosie rascal likes to smash foes with her mighty hammer. She also has a knack of deceiving opponents to leave them vulnerable. Espio the Chameleon, a sneaky warrior that likes to slap, karate chop, and throw opponents. He also likes to attack people at a distance using his tongue. Honey the Cat, a bonus character for later versions. She was originally planned to be in the base game, but was probably cut due to time constraints. She's based on another character in a fighting game called the Fighting Vipers. We'll talk more about her later. The game's soundtrack was composed by, and I apologize if I pronounce these wrong, Makimaru and Takanobu Mitsuyoshi. And while I don't know much about their musical history other than all I gotta say is I actually love this game's soundtrack. Every track gives an ultra punchy, wacky, cartoony, and high-octane vibe while you're duking it out on all of the stages. It must have been a little bit of a shame back in the day to barely hear it in bustling and loud arcades, so I'm super happy for these ports just so I can actually be able to listen to these tracks clearly. My favorites are Flying Carpet, Giant Wing, and Dynamite Plant. Now I love every track in the game, but these are the ones I personally go to listen to all the time. Here are all of the modes you get to play in the 7th generation port of the game. Story/Arcade. Play against all 8 fighters for their Chaos Emeralds to save the world. It also records how fast you beat the game with whatever character you choose. Versus mode. Play against other players locally on the same screen. Now, I actually played the crap out of this game mode with my brother growing up on the GameCube version. We did things from testing how certain moves work to playing it super competitively to the point where we'd fight in real life when someone spammed moves or was just better than the other. This is the go-to game mode. Online play. Connect to the PlayStation Network or Xbox Live to match up with other players around the world. I actually got to do this for a little while when the game first came out, and it played pretty smoothly, and it's sad to see that the matchmaking has died out because nobody plays the game online anymore, or probably at all. Worldwide. There's got to be one guy in the world playing. Come on. We can do this. We can do it. I believe in you. Someone will Sonic the Fighters me. We can do this. I was able to try to matchmake with people a few months ago, but alas, I had no luck. No one wanted to play it in ranked mode, and no one wanted to play in free play mode, so it's good to see. I mean, it's good to say that this online mode is dead. Options. Change the difficulty, number of matches, different kinds of rule sets for the games, etc. Like if you have barriers, reset each round, or how long each round lasts, and change the volume and sound effects of the game. Which is pretty alright for a ported arcade game if you ask me. And you can also listen to the soundtrack. There really isn't anything to unlock in this game except for Supersonic. But you don't get to enjoy him for very long. In order to play as him, you have to win every round in Sonic in arcade mode.
Without losing a single round.
Now, that can sound tough enough. And if you actually get it done, you don't actually unlock him, you just get to play as him in the second round versus Metal Sonic and in the final fight with the Eggman. These perks of being Supersonic is he always has hyper mode speed attacks and he doesn't lose health. You still flinch and recoil though, so be careful not to get hit by Eggman too much to time out. Now, in the 360/PS3 ports of the game, they do have 3 added characters you can play as. Honey, like I talked about earlier, is an amalgamation of most of the characters in the game, like gliding like Knuckles, she poses like Amy, does a couple Tails attacks, etc. She can be quite fun to use if you like to switch up playstyles on the fly and if you truly mastered the game. You can also actually get to play as Eggman and his mech and Metal Sonic in local versus modes only, which is a neat little perk to these versions of the game. There is also a way to play as the Eggman mech and for some reason the rocket version of Metal Sonic from the introduction, but this requires hacking the original arcade version to do so. And I think they just have a combination of some of the other fighters' moves, but man, it is surreal to see that giant version of Metal Sonic rampage the stage. And I wasn't able to do this successfully, so I'm probably taking footage from the internet of somebody else doing it, so I thank them for properly emulating the game to see this kind of footage. Now, if I were to look back at this game when it originally released, I'd praise it to be very technologically advanced for its time graphically. The only things I'd knock it for would be that at the time there were a bazillion other fighting games coming out to capitalize the craze of Street Fighter II's huge boom, and the fact that it is super short. I mean, that makes sense because it's an arcade game and really not really meant to be experienced for more than 20 minutes. But I'm still looking at the game when it came out on the home consoles via the GameCube and PS2. So, it's a neat little distraction and fun to play with friends for a little bit, but with how little the meta is handled with this game, it gets stale relatively quickly. I'd give this game a 6 out of 10. The music is amazing, sound effects fit the cartoony aesthetic and fit the times, but yeah, it gets too stale too quickly for my taste. As for anything extra this game has influenced, it has added Bark the Polar Bear and Bean the Duck to Sonic's cast of characters, which they actually star as cameos in the port of the Fighters Mega Mix on the Sega Saturn, so that's cool that they were able to escape the arcade exclusivity at least a little bit. And it is cool to see them be featured in the Sonic comics at some point in the future. I haven't really read it, but I've heard that they were there. It's cool to see them there, to see their characters get fleshed out a little bit, and I hope to see them in future Sonic games other than just being a cameo here and there.
So yeah, Sonic the Fighters is a weird and pretty fun game to play every once in a while, but I kind of want to see what it's like to have Sonic and company duke it out in more of a fleshed out kind of story. Join me next time as we hop on the Game Boy Advance to see how well Sonic makes a party fighting game work on that console. Xeno's going to review Sonic Battle. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. You guys know what to do next. Probably wait another 3 months for another video because that's how I work. And Xeno will be signing off after I chill for more videos in the corner here if you haven't watched them. Some of them are pretty good. People say they are. I don't know myself. It's up to you. I'm still talking. I'm going to shut up now.